Voyage.
When the holidays start to feel a bit repetitive, reach for a Sprite Winter Spiced Cranberry and put your twist on tradition. A bold cranberry and winter spice flavor fusion, Sprite Winter Spiced Cranberry is a refreshing way to shake things up this sipping season. And only for a limited time. Sprite. Obey your thirst.
Every Who down in Who Newville liked the holidays a ton. But where to get great prices on gifts, they had no idea. None. They searched and they searched for great gifts under $25. Gifts for spouses and friends and even their toddlers. When suddenly one Who shouted, Walmart has what you want, knowing they have Lego, Tree Hut, and low prices to flaunt. So they enjoy the holiday season as Who's often do. Cheering and shouting, Walmart has incredible gifts. Who knew? Find gifts they'll love under $25 at Walmart.
I had a wonderful life growing up in San Diego in a naval family until I got epilepsy in 1963 when the disorder was not very well understood. As a 10-year-old child, I was imprisoned in a mental institution, locked up in a padded cell, like a violent criminal, not knowing if I would ever go free. I grew up in San Diego, California. My mother was really sweet and kind to me because she would see that I was growing up to be a young man. And the things that our father would do for all the children, because he treated us equally, were really great. I remember also is I would always go after church over to a friend's house, and he had a big mansion outside of San Diego because his father was he was wealthy. And at that time, me and him would always do so many things, play in the woods, go on hikes, play kickball. Just doing all of those activities were really great for me growing up as a child, and I had a wonderful childhood. My mother encouraged me to be on a baseball team, and I played right field. And when a ball would go out to the field, and I would catch that ball and be another out on the opposite team, and it gave me a sense of really great satisfaction, and I really enjoyed playing baseball. It was really a fun time when I was growing up, all the way up until I guess the age of 10. And I was playing baseball, it was my turn to go up to bat. And when I got up to bat, I had 2 balls and then 1 strike, and I'm getting ready to go ahead and hopefully hit a home run, and then the pitcher threw the ball.
Batter up.
Come on, Jesse. Hit it. You got this, bud. Out the park, son. Come on. Jesse!
Call 911.
Jesse, sweetheart, can you hear me? Jesse!
I collapsed right there on the mound, and when I did, the people rushed to me because they could see that it was an emergency, that I, in a sense, had been knocked out because it was a very fast ball. And they rushed me to a hospital because I was unconscious. Then I woke up sometime later. My mother was right there with me, along with my father. And my mother said, "Don't worry, you'll be okay." And at that time, I thought, well, maybe I'll have a headache for a little while, but then it'll go away, so I'll be okay. And when I went home, it was later in the afternoon, on the evening, and my mother just wanted to put me in bed, have me rest. What happened is I ended up having my first seizure in my life. I collapsed and I fell out of bed, and I was shaking vigilantly because having a seizure was something that I had no idea what it was all about, because, again, I was just a normal child living a great life. 2 days later, I went to bed. That's when I had another seizure, and this time the seizure was more severe, and I was shaking really vigilantly, making noise, and that's when my parents came into the room to see me shaking vigilantly and falling off of the bed. Then my parents took me straight to the hospital at that time, And then I was admitted into the hospital for another week or so because they were trying to determine what caused the seizure. Doctors did so many tests on me. One of the tests that I do remember, it's known as an EEG, electroencephalogram. And at that time, it was much less advanced than it is today. And that's where they would put around 18 to 22 thumbtacks into the skull, puncturing the skull, going into the area where they're going to get through an EEG of the brain waves. When they took the EEG and then they determined at that time, and they told my mother and my father,
Jesse has epilepsy.
So, what does that mean?
Well, epilepsy is a chronic brain disorder that causes seizures. You'll see muscle jerks and twitches, involuntary movements, loss of consciousness.
I mean, what can we do? Is there anything?
We need to start treatment immediately, and all we can really hope to do is manage it with treatment. There's no cure. This is a lifelong disorder.
Am I dying?
I'm going back home to be with my family again, but then they were also told that Jesse has epilepsy. I thought I was going to be living, I should say, a normal life, but over time, I started having more seizures again. Sometimes in school, where I was not accepted really, because the kids didn't know at that time what epilepsy was. They had no idea. They'd think, well, what's happening with him? Why is he doing all this? But that's what happens when you have seizures. It can happen at any time. And my seizures really started to be more severe and get worse. They went from psychomotor to petit mal and then on to grand mal. Grand mal is, of course, the worst because when the oxygen supply to the brain stops, the brain cells, I should say, are being destroyed, which can cause many other factors of illness or diseases that epilepsy can cause. So they asked me not to come back to the school in itself. I had to be either homeschooled or I had to go into a different institution. And at that time, the only institution that they were going to be considering to take me to was around almost 200 miles away in the city of Camarillo. And that was at a Camarillo mental institution. But the reason that they chose that location is because that was one of the few locations where there is a padded cell. If I continued to have grand mal seizures as I was having them on a daily and a consistent basis, at least I wouldn't be cracking my skull or killing myself because my head would be bounced up against padding. It's more of a safety factor to keep me in a padded cell than letting me continue to have grand mal seizures because the doctors did not know how to control epilepsy with the proper medications at that time. They put me on so many different medications: phenobarbital, Diamox, Myceline, Dilantin, Valium, and none of them seemed to be working. So they put me into Camarillo so that I wouldn't kill myself.
You have to stay. Just for a little while. So they can figure out how to help you.
Stay where?
A room where you can be safe.
Like a doctor's office?
Sort of. Like a bigger one with soft walls. Just in case something happens again.
Like I'm a crazy person?
No, you're not crazy. It's just so you can be safe.
Do they think I'm crazy?
No one thinks you're crazy.
How long do I have to stay here?
I'll visit every chance I can.
But it took 5 hours to get here. I'm sorry. For causing so much trouble.
You have never been trouble. Never. And you never will be.
I don't know anyone here.
That's the nurse coming over.
Please don't leave me here.
She's gonna take you in, okay?
Please.
And that's where I lived not a very good life at all. I hated the place because they were very mean to me also. And then my mother would come every single Sunday to Camarillo all the way from San Diego and back just to visit me. That was almost 300 miles. And it was such a wonderful time when I would see her there, because being alone in a padded cell throughout the whole week with maybe 1 or 1.5 hours with my mother, it was such an enlightening moment to see her on Sundays, and that brought my spirits up. My father was stationed in San Diego at the time, but he was now transferred to Hawaii. That's the reason that I left Camarillo, is because we were moving from California to Hawaii. We went across the ocean on a military ship. It was called the USS Barrett, and I'd never been on a ship in my life. I started attending a private school, and I did not have as many seizures at that time, but I started becoming emotionally disturbed. Emotionally disturbance is, in a sense, something that could happen to someone who has epilepsy or any other disease or disorder, because you're not living the same kind of a lifestyle that you have anymore. And it's totally different when you're isolated, because it causes mental disturbance. After 2 years in living in Hawaii, I came back to California with my father. The rest of the family stayed there, and my father then had put me into a boys' home in Lake Elsinore, California, but it was a boys' home for the emotionally disturbed. And what they do there is they have to watch over me as I had epilepsy, with the seizures still continuing. And they also had to control the emotional disturbance, where they would bring me back to a normal life. I was there for a little over 2 years, and after 2 years, I was released back. I've been away from my family for quite a long time, since age 10. And they moved me to Tustin, where my family was living, and that's when I started attending high school. But the seizures started coming back. The same thing happened that had happened in younger school days, where I had seizures. I'm getting the same reaction from the students as, what is wrong with this person? He's kind of strange, weird. So many times during my high school days, I would ditch school. I didn't want to go to school because I knew that I would not be accepted there, be made fun of, and give you dirty looks, not knowing the real case of what epilepsy was. So I started ditching, and then, I was not really getting along very well with my sisters at the time. Some of them had grown up and they're gone now, but I'm still around here living with my father at the time, because after high school, my parents had split up. So now I was living with my father in Santa Ana, California. And that's when the severity of my seizures became really, really bad. It went into grand mal seizures, were now becoming the worst. And there were many, many times where I would end up falling, but then there were many times that I'd also injure myself. Remember one time when I injured myself hitting my head on the cement. They had to take me to UCI Hospital in Orange, California. I had broken my teeth. I had messed my frontal lip up, and I needed surgery. I stayed in the hospital, completed the surgery, but it's another example of what can happen when seizures are now not under control anymore. I got to the point in my life where I didn't ever know what's going to happen to me. And when you're living with epilepsy, you really don't have much of a life. You can't drive. You're not allowed to have a license unless you're totally free for over 2 years. That wasn't my case. All I could do was walk the streets because I didn't want to go to school because I didn't want the kids there looking at me when I'm having seizures. I would have seizures periodically in the daytime, but most of them became nocturnal, where I would have it at night. If I did have a seizure, then what happens is the police would come by thinking that maybe he's on drugs or something, but then they would take me to the hospital where they would call my father, and he'd come down and get me. He understood he's having another seizure. One time I was just staying in the house, and then I knew that I was going to be having seizures again. It's nothing but living a life of loneliness and boredom. That's all it is. I knew that I was going to die. So I just tried to commit suicide. And then I went into the bathroom, took a razor blade, and I slit my wrist. Because I didn't want to live with epilepsy no more, prolonging the pain and the suffering of having seizures. So by not prolonging them, I might as well just take my life early. And another major reason was because I was so bored with my life, I didn't have nothing to do. So I ran into the house after I slit my wrist, and I was bleeding very badly. And eventually I just collapsed. I collapsed in a field.
I'm ready to go. I'm ready to go.
You alive?
If they hadn't come by in that time, I probably wouldn't be here, but they saved my life. They took me immediately to the hospital, and they stopped the bleeding. They sewn the stitches through my wrist, and with that, I was brought home maybe 3 or 4 days later. The seizures, of course, didn't stop. That didn't correct it in any way, so I didn't know what to do. I was still walking the streets, and at that time, my mother, she wanted to come by to see how I was doing, and she decided that she wanted to take me to church.
I'm not going.
It's one time. What's the harm of one time? If you hate it, I won't ask you again.
Well, what if I have a seizure? It's one more place for me to get kicked out of.
It's the one place you will never be kicked out of.
How is sitting in a church going to help me?
All right, we're here. Just one time, please.
One time. But I'm never coming back here again.
Eventually, she got me to go. She started taking me to church, and it really was an enlightening time for me because I'd never been to a church that size before. It was a large church, Garden Grove Community Church, where they had television. Dr. Schuler was the main pastor there, who was on television all over the world. I started attending there with my mother, and then she eventually says, you know, there's a singles group over here that you should start attending.
Hey, you should go to the singles group.
I have enough problems on my own. I don't need to put a woman through this.
She should be so lucky.
How would that even work? We go to dinner, I have a seizure, the manager thinks I'm a drug addict and asks me to leave. That's a real nice date to take a lady on.
You let fear start driving you, it'll never stop. The people at church will accept you for who you are.
They're more likely to think I need an exorcism.
You deserve to be happy, just like anyone else.
So I started coming to the singles group quite a bit every Sunday, and then I started meeting people, and in a sense I started making friends, which I'd never had for many years before. And the worst fear that I had was having the seizure. They're going to ask me to leave and never come back. We don't allow epileptics in here. Unfortunately for me, what happened is I had a seizure in the singles class right there at church. When I had that seizure, I said, well, I'm not going to be able to come back here anymore. It was a grand mal seizure, so they immediately called an ambulance, and they called the fire department, and they contacted my mother in another area of the church. She came running real fast. And then my mom came the following week after that seizure. Said, come on, we're going to church.
Where are we going?
Where do you think?
They're not gonna let me back in there. Are you kidding?
No, I'm not kidding. We're going.
These people won't even want to look at me. I don't blame them. They should be able to have their service without worrying about me.
Oh, yeah? Did anyone say that to you?
Well, no, but
Okay, then how do you know that?
I know people.
Maybe not as well as you think, bud.
I don't...
Just walk through the door. Okay? We're gonna be there in just a minute.
But what if...
No, what if? No, what if? Only what is. No one ever said you weren't allowed back. No one told me that. And I'm pretty sure no one told you that.
I'm afraid.
I know. Sometimes we have to do things even without knowing for sure how they'll turn out. That's why it's called faith.
So they welcomed me back, and all my friends were wanting to know how I was. And that's when my journey started through the church. That seizure that I had on that Sunday. That was my last seizure that I've ever had in my life. I've never had another one since. Never. I've never had a seizure since 1977. My journey through the start of my church changed my life because I didn't know anything about what to do in life, but I knew that if I could go to college, I could probably enhance my education and live a better life. So I didn't know what college was. I didn't know a thing about it. I didn't even know what I had to do. Well, because of all the walking that I did through those years, I decided to stop by college. I came back the following day and I enrolled. So I enrolled in 3 classes. One was first aid, because I wanted to know what to do if I hurt myself. One was Psychology 101, and another one was the history of the West. And my end result of my first semester of college was 1 withdrawal, 1 incomplete. I completed 1 unit. 1 unit in my first semester of college. I had to walk over 5 miles to college, 5 miles back, because, again, I'd never driven a car in my life, and you can't drive with epilepsy. With all that walking, it kind of occupied my time, but I managed to make it to college. And when I enrolled in 1977 to college, I never dropped out of college at all. It took me 8 years to get a 4-year degree because I didn't know what I was doing many times when I went to the college semester, and I didn't know the process of completing classes. Eventually I was learning, and then I eventually had to go see a counselor through the help of one of my so-called angels from my book, and that was a total stranger who said, something's not right. I see you in class, but you don't ask questions, you don't write notes, you don't do anything. And he took me to a school counselor. They took me to the school psychologist, and they determined at that time that I was going through college with a 3rd grade comprehension level. I can't comprehend very, very well what they're teaching me. It's going to take me a lot longer because of the massive damage to the brain cells that I had through all the seizures that I encountered that destroyed my comprehension to the point of where I have to keep rereading something if I'm going to get it in. If I'm going to study for a test, I got to read over and over and over. So that's why it took me 8 years to get a 4-year degree. But After that, I really accomplished quite a bit in life. I was going to the singles group, and then eventually, over a period of 4 years from my last seizure at the church, I eventually was able to get a driver's license. And how I got my first car, because I was only living on disability of $267 a month. That's how I survived. I finally ended up getting a car, a driver's license, and now, boy, my life really changed then. And then I started having so much fun in life, everything started changing. I met Julia at the Crystal Cathedral in the singles group. That was in 1990. She was just another attendee there, and we started going out and doing a lot of different things because we were enjoying life through the singles group. The singles group had many, many activities put together, parties, campouts. They're all new to me. I've never done nothing like this before in my life. And I did so many new things to have an active lifestyle that really enhanced my life. And then at that time, I met her, and then eventually we just started seeing each other. We started dating. We were so compatible that we did so many things together. At that time, I was also traveling all over the world because my life had progressed so much. In 1988, 77 to 88, that's 11 years. 1988, I was so close to the church, and my faith in God was so high. I just said to myself, I believe God has cured me. I'm not going to be taking medication anymore. I stopped taking medication altogether. I just did it by faith. There is no cure for epilepsy. Even then, my doctors said we don't understand it.
Jesse, these medications, they're not optional. You have to take them for life, or you will have seizures again.
How do you know?
How do I? Well, decades of medical research, 25 years of my own medical practice, medical school, science.
I'm not having the seizures anymore at all.
But you will.
Will I?
Everything we know about epilepsy says yes.
Maybe we don't know everything.
I don't understand how this is possible.
Me neither, Doc. That's why it's called faith.
Well, apparently they were wrong. I haven't taken medication since 1988. I'm cured from epilepsy. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Prayer, faith. Yes. It was just faith all the way. I felt so close to God at that time. I let him take care of everything. And because my life changed so much, it was in his direction that it was changing. I just knew that because everything was happening. Here I am, getting a car, a license. I wanted to be in the motion picture industry. I succeeded. I did it. And I never gave up. I wanted to travel the world, and do the things that I wanted to do. Here I am doing it. Everything that I wanted to do, I'm doing. Everything that I wanted to be able to take care of and say that I did, I can now say that it happened. I became a sound man there for 8 years. And then during the glory of Christmas and the glory of Easter, they asked me if I would work on the shows in itself and be hired as a sound technician. I said, of course. And so that was how I became a sound technician at the Crystal Cathedral. It was all by accident, or was it really? The Glory of Christmas is great production. It's the story of the birth of Jesus. The music is nothing but beautiful Christian Christmas music, and the songs are overwhelmingly beautiful. They have live animals. They even have tigers, camels, goats, and then they have people that dress up. They have soldiers. They have the wise men. and angels flying in the air off of wires. They have Jesus and Mary, Joseph going into the manger in Bethlehem. You feel like you're really in the Christmas spirit. In 1982, when I was the guest speaker at the Christian Cathedral, my mother was there, along with my sister. And she was so proud of me when I was on the pulpit at the Christian Cathedral. And then the singles group on the church bulletin also had what was called a bulletin, where it would come out every Sunday. My mother went directly to the church and she wrote a little story in the church bulletin, and the words that I remember in there that she had written, and she said,
My son, Jesse, he came to Garden Grove Community Church so many years ago with a severe case of epilepsy. And he came here. He came here to the church hurt, knowing rejection, without any purpose or reason to live. But since then, he has totally changed his entire life through faith. And he is indeed a walking miracle to God for what he's done.
And that was in the church bulletin the following day. And she said, he was a guest speaker at the Christian Cathedral on Sunday. And it totally overwhelmed me from where he was to where he is now. It's a miracle.
Hope Lives Here is a production of Voyage Media. The series is produced by Nat Mundel, Robert Mitas, and Dan Benamor. This episode, Angels from Heaven, was produced by Romell Foster-Owens. Executive produced by Jesse Fiedor, based on Jesse's novel, Angels from Heaven, available now on Amazon. A link is in the show notes. Edited, sound designed, and mixed by Adam Volrich. Original music by Darlis Gonzalez. Starring Ben Van Diepen as Jesse and Rochelle Simpson as Jesse's mother. If you're enjoying the show, please leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts or anywhere you're listening, and subscribe now for future episodes.